Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending our critical questions to ask before automating your AP webinar presented by Mark Palumbo from Avid Exchange. My name is Helen Dion. I am the marketing manager for SWK Technologies. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to attend this webinar, and we will be recording the presentation. So you will have a version of the recording in your inboxes tomorrow, and we will be distributing that to all of you guys. A couple housekeeping items before we start. Everyone has been placed on mute to keep the background noise down for everyone. Any questions you have can be typed into the chat or questions section in the GoToWebinar pod on the right side of your screen. Depending on the number of questions that we get, we will answer them as we go along or save them towards the end. We usually save them towards the end though, so just hold tight on any questions that you have. And feel free to type the questions in as we go along so that we can keep track of things that are coming in. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Mark.
Great, thanks, Ellen. Really appreciate the team at SWK Technologies inviting us to present to the audience today. SWK and Avid Exchange have been partners now for almost 4 or 5 years, so it's been quite a while. I'm actually one of the channel alliance managers at Avid Exchange. I effectively run the reseller program for Avid Exchange, and SWK is one of a short group of elite partners that we have in our program that's actually able to resell Avid Exchange, meaning that when you purchase the Avid Exchange solution, it actually goes on SWK's paper. They'll be the ones billing you versus us. So it's a kind of a unique position they have versus some of the other partners we have out there. They've been a fantastic partner for years in the Sage ecosystem and Acumatic ecosystems, and have also built some really unique, exciting integrations that you can talk to your account manager about if you're on one of those accounting systems. Also with us today, I've got Carol Harris. She's our partner marketing manager. She'll be helping us out to wrap up the end of the presentation with a short poll for everyone, and then she'll be helping out with the Q&A session. So today's agenda will be focusing on really 3 items. What is AP automation? There's a lot of companies out there that talk about AP automation in a variety of different forms. We're going to kind of give you a broad-based definition that we've looked at from the market. We work with a number of different analyst firms from Gartner, IDC, Paystream Advisors, and others to kind of give you a broad spectrum of what AP automation is and what it means to the market, and why it's so hot. Why are people moving in this direction to automate their AP process? Then we're going to talk about really the meat of today's discussion, which are what are the critical questions to ask when you're looking at automating your AP process. There are a number of things that, whether it's Avid Exchange or some other vendor that you're talking to, that you really want to vet out and be sure that you're evaluating the right solution. And of course, I'd be remiss to tell you about all the great things that Avid Exchange does. So we're going to talk specifically about how Avid Exchange can help you out with your AP automation challenges today and hopefully get you into a better place going forward. And then, like I said earlier, we'll wrap with Q&A and questions that you might have about anything that I covered today. So what is AP automation? So this is really critical. We look at it as both software and services that facilitate streamlining the accounts payable process. So what that means is, if you are looking at a solution that is only a software-based solution, like document management or a software as a service cloud solution, but there's no managed services component to it, actual people helping out in the process. We've heard that the solution can only be about 80% effective, such as OCR technologies, other things that are out there, because you don't have actual people helping out with things like indexing, managing your suppliers, things of that nature. So Avid Exchange, we look at AP automation as both software and services combined to provide a complete solution that can really cover you 100% on both your invoices and your payments. So we'll talk more about what that looks like. So one of the critical questions that we're asking folks to look at before you're selecting a vendor for AP automation. So we'll cover each one of these in detail, but in short, is AP automation a good fit? May or may not be a good fit for you. We'll talk about some of the things you want to look at to determine if that's true or not. Will AP automation change your current AP process? Probably, hopefully for the better, but ideally we don't want to disrupt anything in the current process. So again, when you're looking at different vendors, you want to look at a solution that's going to mirror or mimic the current process you have in place today. A really important one is, does it work with my accounting system? Again, as I mentioned earlier, the SWK team has been fantastic in working with us, with Sage and Acumatica and the solutions for their customers and those accounting systems. We do support other accounting systems out there, and it's real critical that you're working with your consultant and your partner, in this case SWK, to be sure that your AP automation solution works effectively with the solution you're looking to automate. And then, how's this going to impact your bottom line? If there's no return on investment, then why do it, right? So there's got to be some impact to the business. Is this going to make a positive change, both material in terms of efficiencies and processes, but also will it materially impact the finances? Is this going to be more cost effective than what you're doing today? And again, if it's not, then this may not be a good solution for you. If it is, and we'll show you some of the dollars and cents, then I think you're probably going to want to move forward sooner than later. And then last but not least, what does the implementation process look like? It shouldn't be complicated. There are folks out there that take months and months and months. I've heard some horror stories from some of our competitors that have worked with prospects, and 6 months later they still can't get things working. We have actually a 45-day implementation guarantee. So the goal here with any AP automation vendor that you work with or select, you're going to want a solution that hopefully will get you up and running within 30 to 45 days. So first question, is this a good fit for my organization? Well, let's look at some of the factors here. So if you are doing more than 100 invoices or payments per month, there's a good shot that this could be a good fit for you. If you're doing 20, 30 invoices a month, if it's not broke, don't fix it. As the saying goes, this may not be a good solution for you. Now, we do have some customers out there that have as little as 50 invoices per month, but then again, they didn't really have dedicated headcount for managing payables. So in their case, this is a better solution for them. But for folks that have a full-time person and you've got less than 100 invoices or payments per month, then it may or may not be a good fit for you. We're still happy to talk to you about it, but just want you to realize that volume is one of those driving factors. What about your process today? Is it completely manual? Have you automated into processes? Are you still getting paper invoices via snail mail that you've got to scan in by hand? That's not very efficient. Are they coming in via PDF? I have some customers out there that I've talked to that have emails coming in with PDF invoices, and they end up printing them so that people can sign them. I said, you've negated the whole process of having a PDF via email if you're printing it and then having somebody sign it manually. Are there bottlenecks in your current process? Again, you're reliant on U.S. mail. I've had other customers that have multiple locations where they're sending inter-office mail and FedEx envelopes with invoices that they have to sign and approve. And again, there's an easier, better way to do all that stuff electronically. And then last but not least, we're in a very fast growing economy. It's unbelievable the kind of growth we've experienced the past few years. We're hearing from numbers of customers that are small today, but they've merged, they've acquired. Their CEO or their president or their CFO is pushing them to add more locations. Folks like restaurant franchises or retail locations or healthcare, and they're just adding more and more facilities. Well, guess what? As you add more and more facilities, you may have less than 100 invoices today, but maybe you add 5 or 10 new locations that are processing 25, 50 plus invoices per month. Well, that adds up real fast. Next thing you know, you're doing 500 to 1,000 or more invoices per month. You may want to plan for the future, and automating your AP process is going to be a big part of that. Second question, so will automation change the AP process today? It should. We've documented a number of customers' AP process, what they look like. We affectionately call this our bubble slide. And so what you can see here is everywhere you've got a small bubble. This is typically what an AP department has to go through today in terms of manually processing their AP. Invoices are coming in via snail mail or PDF. Again, if it's snail mail, they've got to open the mail, somehow scan it, get in. Maybe they're matching it to a PO. Maybe they're routing it manually or electronically around the office for approvers to sign. Then there's some coding and proving it has to go into the accounting system. You have to match it to somebody's budget. Does this go to marketing's budget, finance budget, sales budget, whatever? What's the accounting system entry in terms of matching up those budgets to GL codes, et cetera? You have to post it to the general ledger, and then that's the invoice portion. Then we go over to the payment portion. Most customers today are setting up a bunch of payments, they're approving them, and they're sending them over to the local check printer, and they do a check printing run. either a few times a month, once a week. Some are doing it daily, depends on how many checks you're processing. And it's unbelievable where, I was in the banking industry years ago where they talked about checks going away. Well, this was 20 years ago, and folks, checks have still not gone away. In fact, if anything, what the analysts are telling us is that they've actually increased. Was I think 51% of all payments in the U.S. were check-based 2 or 3 years ago. That actually ticked up to about 53 or 54%. So a ton of small businesses are still writing checks today. And we laugh because a lot of millennials and folks are coming into the workforce. They're used to paying their bills, via Venmo and Square Cash and PayPal. And then they come into the workplace and they see these paper checks sitting on the printer or on somebody's desk. Say, what the heck is this? It's a check. What's a check? They've never written a check before, right? So we got to try to help customers get up to the times, move off of paper checks, move on to electronic forms of payment. And we'll talk about that a little later. And then, of course, after the payment's made, you've got to file that invoice, and there's research. And then, of course, the dreaded audit. We're coming up every year in April, the audit time. Folks are doing, month-end audits, quarterly-end audits, year-end audits, then tax time audits, and they can be very painful. If you're doing a manual process and you've got invoices stored in those metal gray filing cabinets, you know how painful it is when auditors come in. They are looking for copies of invoices. We'll talk about that a little later on as well. So when you're automating your AP process, you are really dealing with kind of 4 pain point areas. One is the manual invoice handling. You want to get rid of that. You don't want people having to either print PDFs or open mail and look up invoices, manually signing things, manually matching up POs, manually filing it. We want to get rid of all those manual processes. The second thing is the accounting system integration piece. We really want to try to automate that as much as possible. Look at your accounting system as the system of record. Be sure that all the invoices that are coming in are being updated appropriately into your accounting system. They're matched up to budgets. That's another big pain point. And then on the check side, a lot of folks that have to worry about their supplier info, sometimes I laugh about this. It's a massive security breach. They're maintaining their customers' checking account numbers for ACHs, or they're having to worry about AML, anti-money laundering things, and doing credit checks on their vendors and all these sorts of things. They don't realize how difficult it can be to maintain your own supplier database. And so that's a real big pain point on the payment side. And then last but not least, I mentioned briefly about the audits. Well, what if you do have an auditor come in, he or she wants to know why an invoice was short paid, or why it was late paid, or why there was a dispute with the vendor, right? Well, if you don't have the information in an electronic system, it can be very difficult to go look things up in a metal gray filing cabinet, and then you find there's sticky notes attached to an invoice, and you can't read the person's handwriting for the sticky notes. Trust me, I've seen this before, folks. It's kind of a joke, but it's really not funny. And then they pull it out, and sometimes the sticky notes fall off, and they're lying in the drawer somewhere, so they don't really know what's going on with that sticky note, what invoice to attach to. So, there's a better way. But those are, again, some of the main key points of why you may want to think about automating your AP processes. Now, will the AP automation system work with your accounting system? Again, very important question to ask vendors that you're looking at for this solution. So, the thing is, with AvidXchange, we have over 120 different integrations with different accounting systems out there. As I mentioned, our partnership with SWK is really strong, and we're excited about the enhanced integrations they built for us around Sage 100 and Acumatica. We can talk offline about other accounting systems, but those two are really, really tight integrations into those systems that SWK's team has built for us. We're really excited about that. And again, you want that system to be an API-based system. You want it to augment your accounting system. You want the functionality, and again, you want your accounting system to be the system of record. If anybody else tells you that they're keeping those records in a separate database or outside your accounting system, run for the hills, because that's not such a good way to manage your AP information, because again, you want that stuff stored and tracked in your accounting system. You spend a lot of money and time and detail with the SWK team to manage your accounting system. You want to be sure that maintains and stays your system of record. So does AP automation impact your bottom line? Sure does. So again, as I talked about earlier, we've dealt with a number of different analyst firms, from Gartner to Paystream Advisors, et cetera. And this is what they've told us. This is not data that we created. We get this from all the analysts, and we kind of compile the averages. And what we do know is that on average, in a manual world, it costs the average organization about $22 to process both a check and a paper invoice. $7 on the check side, $15 on the invoice side. When you move to an automated process, your payments should be sub $3, invoices should be sub $7, you should be $10 or less when you fully automate. In fact, we have customers out there that are in the $3 to $5 range all in on AP process. So they've actually, there's a 60% average here, but we've got customers that have saved as much as 80% by moving from a manual AP process to an automated process. So very significant cost savings there. And what are those costs comprised of? Again, eliminating the paper invoice and checks, automating it, offloading manual labor. We've calculated through our analyst firms that we've gotten the research from that it takes the average AP specialist, AP clerk, about 2 to 4 hours a day in a normal sized AP department, meaning if you're processing anywhere from 300 to 500 plus invoices and payments per month, the average AP clerk on your team or person who's processing AP is spending about 2 to 4 hours per day. And again, that could be time better spent on more strategic, important things to help with the business. Because again, nobody likes stuffing checks in envelopes or having to file invoices in a paper filing cabinet or run around the office trying to get signatures. We can help you shorten your invoice approval time. So again, you don't want to have to walk around and manually try to get signatures. You want to have an electronic signature type process so that if the CEO is on a conference in New York and your CFO is on vacation in Hawaii with his family or her family, you want to be able to send those approvals out, and they can literally go into their smartphone and just hit approve, and seconds later, that invoice has been taken care of. So we can literally cut your approval cycle time. I think the average is 12 to 15 days down to about 3 to 5 days or less. So again, huge cost savings there. Visibility is important. We actually run AvidXchange on top of the Microsoft Azure platform. It's one of the most secure cloud platforms on the planet. We looked between it was Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, and Google. We chose Microsoft because we also work with some of their systems as well. And to that end, when you look at that cloud platform, you can be anywhere on the planet. You can be in Singapore, Japan, Russia, wherever, and you can see your invoices, your payments 24/7 from anywhere on the planet. That's a huge, huge, a cost saver and just a huge way to keep your invoice in check and being able to see everything. In fact, I think it's in the controller's job title that they have to control expenses. They want to be able to see everything 24/7. This is a great way to give them that access. And then I talked about checks earlier. Well, one of the things we didn't talk about was fraud. Well, in the case of fraud, we know, again, from analyst data we've compiled, over 75% of payment fraud today is done via paper check. If anybody's seen that movie, Catch Me If You Can, with Leonardo DiCaprio, you know what I'm talking about. He goes in, he starts forging American Airlines checks. You see how easy it is for him to do that. Very easy to forge blank check stock. In fact, I'm down here in Houston, Texas. We had the Memorial Hermann Hospital System. They hired an AP clerk that didn't do a background check on the guy had been in prison before, and they gave him full access to their AP system. I don't know why they did it, but again, it was a manual process. And this guy was able to go in, figure out how to create 24 dummy vendor accounts in and around the Houston metropolitan area. He set up 24 PO boxes, and he started sending checks to these dummy vendors that he had set up in the database. He siphoned off about $3 million from the Memorial Hermann Hospital System. Huge embarrassment. They finally caught the guy. He's in jail now, but it took him, I think, 3 or 4 years to catch him. It was all over the newspapers down here. And that's just one example of check fraud. Most people don't like to talk about the check fraud because who wants to admit that they got defrauded, right? But it's a big issue. Don't get caught, as a victim to fraud. There's an easier, better way to automate those payments. And then last but not least, you want to be sure that you're not paying double, right? So how many times have you sent a check out and said, oh, did we send a check for the $100 for that bakery bill or that catering bill or whatever it was, or should we send it again? And, sometimes, your less scrupulous vendors may not tell you they got a double payment. They may just cash both checks and, let it go. So that could be another area of inefficiency that may be costing your business money. So last but not least, what does the implementation process look like? Well, again, if a vendor is not able to get you up and running within 30 to 45 days, we probably have an issue. You know, in a well-run, efficient environment, working with the SWK team, working with AvidXchange, we should have you guys up and running within 30 to 45 days from start to finish. Again, the timeline kind of looks like this, but it's really about an 8-week process. And as you can see, we're involved every step of the way. And if you're talking to a vendor about AP automation and they're not giving you this type of implementation timeline and actually holding you accountable to hitting these milestones, may not be a vendor you want to look at, because that might be somebody who doesn't have the team to support you. The cool thing about AvidXchange is we have over 1,200 employees now. We're one of the largest AP automation companies in the country right now. And I'll talk about our supplier network here in just a bit, but we have a tremendous depth of customer success managers, project managers, support managers, et cetera, to help you and support you and the team at SWK to be sure you're up and running in a time-efficient manner. So that is kind of the bulk of the webinar there on the critical questions to ask when you're looking at a vendor for AP automation. Now I'd like to talk about how AvidXchange does it and how we differentiate ourselves in the marketplace. So first off, there's really 3 ways to get your invoices into AvidXchange. We call it in the ingestion or index portion of the process. And they can be done via email. We'll actually set you up with an inbox that'll be, say Acme Corporation at avidexchange.com, or again, whatever the name of your company is, AvidXchange. We'll set you up with an inbox, and we'll help train your vendors and suppliers to send those invoices directly to that inbox, so that our indexing team, again, we talked about managed services earlier, we have an indexing team that actually helps double check and look at those invoices for you. So they'll check things like, hey, maybe you got an invoice in for $1,000, but somebody wrote in red ink $100 tip. Well, is the invoice for $1,000 or is it for $1,100? Did you pay the tip in cash, or is that part of the invoice, right? So these are things that our indexers will flag, and they'll check as an exception for you to review in your inbox. The other way is you can also scan them yourselves. I mentioned document management solutions. There's some great document management solutions that are out there. Personally, I like scanning like I like to shake a can of soda up in my car. It's not very fun, but if you like scanning, you can do that. We also have a team of scanners that actually will do this for you. So you will also train your suppliers and vendors to send those paper invoices, which is the last bucket there, to send those to our payments lockbox facility, and our scanners will actually scan those invoices on your behalf, and then you'll simply get a notification that you've got invoices. And so what that looks like is essentially, you remember, this is probably dating how old I am now, but you remember the old America Online commercials, AOL says, you've got mail. Well, hey, you've got invoices. So you'll get a notification on your smartphone, your desktop computer, your laptop, if you're working remotely, whatever, and it'll say, hey, you've got invoices that are awaiting approval. And you simply click a link which takes you into the AvidXchange portal. Once you go into the AvidXchange portal, it looks like this. And so you might have, in this case, 6 invoices that need your review. And so maybe you're not sure about one of these invoices, you want to take a closer look at it. You can actually drill down. We store the entire copy of the invoice, so even on your smartphone, you can actually look and say, oh, I remember this now. This is a City of Charlotte invoice. Yeah, okay, I know what this is. No problem. But again, you want to have all that data, so you want to be sure the solution is mobile. You can access this 24/7 from anywhere. You want to be sure you have access to the entire invoice, not just portions of it. So I know some of our competitors out there only store some of the header detail. They don't actually give you the entire invoice. This is pretty critical. And then once you're in there, you can also look at the distributions. In this case, we've got it split up between 2 different GL accounting codes there at the bottom. Maybe it's 3, maybe it's 4, maybe it's 1. Again, you determine that. This is totally flexible in terms of how you set it up, how you customize it for your environment. You can do that within AvidXchange, so it's not limited by any particular number. So we'll actually work with you to set these approvals up in the system and set up the property codes, accounting codes, whatever you need per your current workflow process. And then maybe there's a dispute on this particular invoice. So there's also an attachment field here where you can upload things. So remember I mentioned earlier about putting sticky notes in invoices? Well, we want to avoid that. So instead of putting a sticky note in an invoice, how about we add an attachment? So maybe we're having a dispute with the City of Charlotte over the number of items we received, or there's a discrepancy in how much we should have paid, we can attach emails here or documentation to say, hey, we short paid this invoice because of XYZ, and here's the email documentation from City of Charlotte backing up our claim or whatever. So you've got the capability to add attachments into the portal on every single invoice. You can also put comments. So maybe you don't have specific information, but you can say, hey, I talked to Sam over at the City of Charlotte, and Sam said he was sending an invoice adjustment on end of July or end of August, so we can rectify this situation. So you can put as many comments as you want, so that way if anybody needs to work it, maybe you're going on vacation to go to the beach in a couple of weeks and you've got somebody stepping in on your behalf, they can also look at the comments field to see what's going on with this invoice, so everything is tracked and documented. From a workflow perspective, as I mentioned earlier, you want to mirror the current manual workflow process you've got in place today. We want to electronify it. So in this case, I'm showing you a very simple step 3 workflow process where the AP clerk touches it, they review it, it goes to the accounting manager reviews codes and approves it to the accounting system, and then finally the controller will do a final review and approval of all the invoices that the accounting manager has submitted to them. So that's just one example of a workflow approval process. We've got some customers out there that have up to 20 approvers, depending if the invoice is $10,000 or $100,000. Maybe in your case, you've got a certain threshold of, let's say it's $5,000, where not only the CFO, but the CEO also has to approve it. Again, all of that can be set up inside of the workflow process. It's very customizable. It's probably one of the strongest features that we have in AvidXchange. And again, it's all done inside the cloud. So again, these people can be anywhere on the planet to approve invoices and payments. And then last but not least, from an audit perspective, I always laugh with customers because they say, hey, Mark, I bought this because of the payments rebate program, or I bought it because of the cost efficiencies and the invoices. I had no idea it was going to save me so much time and money when it came to audit season, because the cool thing about AvidXchange is every single transaction is date and time stamped in the system. So every invoice touch, every payment touch is documented here. We have customers that give read-only access to their auditors. The auditors actually go in there and just look up invoice and payments to their heart's content, never have to bother the finance team. And that's a huge, huge time saver. As you guys who've gone through painful audits know, that when the auditors find an invoice that has an issue or discrepancy, they ask for 5 or 10 more, and that simply drags your audit on. It makes it a longer process, and it's more time consuming for your team. This way, you can cut. We had one customer tell me they cut their audit down from a week to like a day. Another one said from 2 weeks down to 2 days. So these are kind of some extremes, but the point is, this audit capability is a huge, huge time saver to be able to see every single touch in the system. So that's Avid Invoice in a nutshell. In terms of Avid Pay, on the payment side, as I mentioned, we have the ability to help you reduce the number of paper checks you're sending out and move them to an electronic form of payment. We still do checks, by the way. In fact, we are one of the largest check suppliers in the country, which is kind of funny. We have over 540,000 suppliers today in our network. In fact, we were just ranked, I think, in one of the analyst firms ranked us as the #1 B2B payments platform in the country. In fact, we've had MasterCard, very large company, select us as their payments platform for over 275 banks across the country for their treasury management customers. We also recently had a press release just last month with SAP Concur, which they have now selected Avid Pay as their payments platform for their products and solutions as well. So it's pretty exciting to see the power of this network continuing to grow. And obviously with SWK's customer base, we're seeing more and more customers moving their payments over to the Avid Pay network. So how does it work? Well, essentially go into the accounting system, you'll batch up the number of payments that you want to send out. Now, for payments that you've already got set up, maybe it's an international wire or expenses, or you've got some specific, high-profile customers that you're sending out a check to, whatever. The question I always get is, Mark, do I have to send all of my payments to the Avid Pay network? Absolutely not. You can keep those, certain number of payments that you really want to manage internally into the accounting, so there's nothing wrong with that. However, there's probably a good chunk of those payments that you really don't want to be bothered with. Who wants to get all those phone calls and emails from vendors saying, hey, where's my payment? What's the status of my invoice? Why wasn't this paid yet? You know, all these sorts of things. Let us take that off your hands and have the AvidPay supplier service team manage that for you. So what happens is those payments that you want to send to AvidPay, instead of sending those payments after you batch them up to the local check printer, you'll simply select AvidPay Network as one of the items. You'll now ship those payments to the AvidPay network, and that kicks off a payment process within one of our call centers. Now, the good news is, out of those 540,000 suppliers, we know that roughly 25 to 30% or more of your current suppliers are probably already in our network, which means we already know whether they want to get a check, an ACH payment, or a virtual card payment from us based on how they've told us they want to get paid in the past. For those vendors that are not in our system, we'll actually begin a call center process to start educating them on the benefits of an electronic payment versus a check payment. And what that sounds like is, hey, you know, this is Mark Palumbo calling from Avid Exchange. You know, Acme Corporation has recently selected us to be their payment supplier. I have a check here in the amount of $1,000. I just want to verify your bill to remit to address. Great, checks in the mail. Hey, by the way, I see you guys do a lot of business with Acme Corporation. Would you like to get paid faster in the future? And if the supplier says yes, we say, great. Do you guys accept MasterCard as an accepted form of payment? We do. Hey, instead of getting this $1,000 check via snail mail every month from these guys, would you like to have this put on your MasterCard account so you can get paid in 24 hours instead of waiting for 2 or 3 weeks? You can do that? Absolutely. Sign me up. And it's crazy. We get about a 35 to 45% conversion of suppliers who, you know, we hear from customers all the time, oh, my suppliers will never take a virtual card payment. Well, you'd be surprised. You know, time is money, cash is money, right? So when they can get paid in 24 hours versus waiting 2 or 3 weeks for a check via snail mail and having to worry about depositing in the bank and all that nonsense, you'd be surprised how many actually will not want to get paid via virtual card. So again, huge percentage of conversion. And the cool thing about the conversion is, once we pull that money from your bank and we pay them via virtual card one of these means, there's a reconciliation process, and then all the merchant services that may be earned on some of those virtual card payments, we actually share back to our clients in the form of a rebate. So many times, the rebates that you earn from the AvidPay network can either pay for your AvidPay service or put a good chunk in those fees to dramatically reduce the monthly cost of those transactions. So very cost affordable. In fact, I have some customers out there that are processing thousands of check payments. We converted them over to electronic forms of payment, and they've actually turned their AP department into a profit center, which is unheard of. So, so it's something to think about. Everybody's earning cashback rewards in their consumer cards. We're doing the same thing, but in the business world, we want to help give you guys cashback rewards to your business. So in short, you know, the power of the network, as I mentioned, we have about a 40% average e-payment adoption, moving folks off of a paper check onto an electronic payment. We have over 200,000 vendors currently doing electronic payments today, which is phenomenal. As I mentioned, though, we're also one of the largest check suppliers. So the other 340,000, we're still writing checks. So we're sending checks on your behalf. You're digitally signing them via the cloud, and then we're sending them out for you. So it still saves you the money of having to put the stamp on the envelope, look in the envelope, stuff in the checking envelope. We'll do that for you. So that's a huge cost saver there. We simply ask for your permission to talk to your vendors and suppliers to basically tell them the different options they have, and then we let the suppliers choose how they want to get paid. And again, they can choose either ACH, check, or virtual card is how we give them that option. And then the rest here, we also do utility payments. We have some customers out there with 30, 40, 50 plus different locations. Again, restaurant franchises, retail franchises, senior assisted living facilities, and they have challenges managing their energy bills and their gas bills and their water bills. So they'll actually have us do it for them. And that's another huge savings. We have a whole product line called Avid Utility, which manages that. And then, on the ACH side, we have 30,000 plus suppliers that are taking ACH payments from us. So that was Avid Exchange in a nutshell. I covered a tremendous amount of information in a very short period of time. I'm going to now turn it over to Carol and Helen here for the poll and see if we have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. We actually have a question that just came in. It is AvidPay an additional service, or is it included in the entire Avid Exchange automation software suite?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually are, you purchase the solution from SWK, as I mentioned earlier, and everything's based on transaction pricing. So we have a per invoice transaction fee for Avid Invoice, a per transaction fee for Avid Pay. Sometimes there's discounts when you bundle invoice and pay together. I'll defer to your SWK account manager to have that dialogue with them based on your volume. There's also potential discounts there for volume, but essentially that's how it works. And you can also buy the solution separately. So you could just buy Avid Pay if you have an existing document management solution, for example, or you could purchase Avid Invoice if you already have a solution for your payments. So we can either bundle them or unbundle them, but again, something I would talk to your SWK account manager about in terms of pricing.
Thank you. One more question. Is the virtual card like a credit card?
No, it's actually not, and that's a great question. A lot of folks do miss, I guess, I don't want to say miscommunicate is probably the wrong word, but there's a misconception about what a virtual card is. So a credit card is you are taking credit, essentially a loan, to pay for an advance funds for something, right? A virtual card is essentially like a commercial debit card. And there's also another term, they call it a ghost card in the industry, and it's super secure because what happens is in Avid Exchange's world, let's say we have a $1,000 payment to be made and the supplier has selected virtual cards as a payment. We will create, using the rails we have with MasterCard, a one-time virtual card number, and its sole purpose in life is to pay that one invoice. Once it has debited the funds from your account and we've paid the supplier with that virtual card, it's then deleted. There's no way to hack it. There's no way, it's, no way to get funds from it. So it's really the most secure way of paying a supplier because its sole purpose in life is to make that one payment and then it's gone. So very good question, but yeah, virtual cards are not the same as credit cards.
All right, so that doesn't look like we have any other questions, but we do want to send out this poll really quick to everyone before you hop off. So hold on just a moment. So this quick poll is to ask you about your next steps so we have a better understanding of any appropriate communications that we should be contacting you about, and then that way we can assist you the best way possible. So if you want to take the poll really quickly before you hop off, and then we'll be in touch if necessary.
Yeah, while people are taking the poll, I just want to say again, thank you to the SWK team for inviting us to speak today. Appreciate it. Thanks to Carol for helping to set this up at Avid Exchange. And obviously to everyone who attended today, we really appreciate your time. We know, again, as I mentioned earlier, time is money, and for you guys to spend, 35, 40 minutes with us today is a lot, so we really appreciate it. And the next step, if you are interested in talking further, please do reach out to your SWK account manager or consultant, and they can get you set up to see a demo of Avid Exchange. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to give everyone a couple more seconds to answer the poll. We are at about 80% voted, so a couple of you still need to respond. Okay, so I think we're in a good place. Thanks everyone for attending. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your customer account manager or SWK, and we will be in touch with you shortly. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen.